What if a new kind of machine, a machine that speaks the bizarre language of quantum physics, is poised to unlock every digital vault, read every encrypted message, and upend the world's security in a single, catastrophic moment? The countdown to that moment has already begun, and the story of how we got here and what comes next is the story of a technological race more profound than any we have ever witnessed. Right now, as you're watching this, trillions of bits of data are zipping around the planet. Your data, my data, the data of global financial markets, of governments, of military communications. And nearly all of it is protected by a beautifully elegant concept called public key cryptography. Imagine you have a special mailbox with two keys. One key, the public key, you can copy 1,000,000 times and give to everyone you know. Anyone can use this key to open a slot on your mailbox and drop a message inside. But once that slot closes, the message is locked in. The only way to retrieve it is with your second key, the private key, which you keep hidden, a secret known only to you. This is the essence of how algorithms like RSA 2048 and ECC work. Every time you visit a secure website, one with HTTPS in the address, your browser and the website's server perform a lightning-fast version of this key exchange. The website hands your browser its public key. Your browser uses it to encrypt a temporary secret code and sends it back. From that point on, only the website's private key can decipher your communication, creating a secure tunnel for your information to travel through. It's the backbone of everything we do online. It secures our emails, protects our signed digital documents, and even underpins the entire world of blockchain and cryptocurrency. This system is built on a simple premise, that certain mathematical problems are easy to do in one direction, but practically impossible to reverse. For RSA, that problem is multiplication. It's easy for a computer to multiply two massive prime numbers together to get a result. But it's incredibly difficult, even for the most powerful supercomputers today, to take that result and figure out the original two primes. It would take a classical computer billions of years to break a standard RSA 2048 key. This difficulty is the lock on your digital mailbox. It has been, for decades, unbreakable. But the universe, it turns out, doesn't play by the same rules that our computers do. In the strange and wonderful realm of quantum mechanics, the impossible becomes possible. And on the horizon, a new type of computer is emerging. One that doesn't just calculate faster, but thinks differently. This is the quantum computer. Unlike a classical bit, which is either a 0 or a 1, a quantum bit, or qubit, can be a 0, a 1, or both at the very same time. This is a mind-bending property called superposition. And if that wasn't strange enough, qubits can also be linked together through a phenomenon Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance, entanglement. When two qubits are entangled, the state of one instantly influences the other, no matter how far apart they are. By harnessing these bizarre properties, a quantum computer can explore a vast number of possibilities simultaneously. Instead of trying to pick the lock of our digital mailbox one key at a time, a quantum computer can essentially try all the keys at once. In 1994, a mathematician named Peter Shor developed an algorithm that could, in theory, run on a sufficiently powerful quantum computer. Shor's algorithm is a master key designed specifically to solve the exact mathematical problems that make RSA and ECC encryption so secure, factoring massive numbers and solving discrete logarithms. For a quantum computer running Shor's algorithm, finding the prime factors of that enormous number isn't a matter of billions of years. It's a matter of hours, or even minutes. The emergence of this theoretical power represents a seismic shift. It's not just an upgrade, it's a paradigm change. Every piece of data ever secured with our current methods, every classified government cable, every corporate trade secret, every bit of financial data currently sitting in secure archives could one day be cracked wide open. This is the quantum threat, a looming event that some cryptographers call Q-Day, the day our digital armor turns to dust. So, the inevitable trillion-dollar question is no longer if this will happen, but when. Spend time in the world of quantum research, and you'll find two camps. In one, there's a palpable sense of a countdown timer ticking away. They believe the fundamental science is solved, and the journey now is one of engineering and scaling. A difficult path, but an inevitable one. They point to the exponential progress in the field and whisper that the 2030s could be the decade of the great cryptographic break. In the other camp, there's a more cautious, pragmatic view. The skeptics argue that the gap between today's noisy, error-prone quantum devices and a machine stable enough to break RSA 2048 is more like a chasm. They believe the practical challenges of building such a machine are so immense that we are still decades, perhaps even a generation, away from a true quantum tipping point. But both sides agree on one thing. The entire debate, the entire future of this technology, hinges on one core, incredibly complex challenge. It's not the algorithms, not the theory, but the physical heart of the machine itself, the quantum chip. At the center of every quantum computer, inside a gleaming chandelier-like fortress of gold and copper plumbing, shielded from the faintest whisper of the outside world, lies the quantum chip. It is a masterpiece of modern physics and engineering. On this chip, qubits are not just abstract concepts. They are real, physical entities. In many of today's leading designs, they are tiny superconducting circuits called Josephson junctions. These are not like the robust, reliable transistors in your laptop. Qubits are the most delicate things humanity has ever created. They are exquisitely sensitive, operating in a state of quantum coherence that is constantly on the verge of collapsing into the noisy, classical world we inhabit. To build a quantum computer, powerful enough to break encryption, we don't just need a few of these qubits. We need millions of them, all working together in a perfectly orchestrated quantum symphony. And as we try to scale up, to move from hundreds of qubits to thousands, and from thousands to millions, we slam headfirst into three enormous engineering hurdles. A maddening maze of wiring, a constant battle against interference, and a near impossible quest for perfection in manufacturing. The first hurdle is a problem of connection. Every single qubit on a chip needs to be individually controlled and measured. Think of each qubit as a marionette in a grand puppet show. To make it dance, you need strings. In the quantum world, these strings are microwave control lines and readout lines that carry signals to and from the qubit. For a chip with a few dozen qubits, this is manageable, but the complexity doesn't scale in a simple, linear way. As you pack more qubits onto a chip, especially towards the center, the wiring becomes an exponentially dense, three-dimensional labyrinth. It's like trying to build a city with 1,000,000 skyscrapers, where every single window in every single building needs its own dedicated, shielded superhighway leading out to the city limits. The chip begins to look less like a processor and more like a hopelessly complex telephone exchange from a bygone era. The sheer physical space required for all the cables, connectors, and amplifiers becomes a nightmare. This wiring doesn't just take up space, it also generates heat and electrical noise, the very things that are poison to a quantum system. You quickly reach a point where the support infrastructure for the qubits is vastly larger and more complex than the qubits themselves, creating a physical barrier to scaling up. The second great hurdle is noise. If a quantum computer is a symphony, then noise is the sound of 100 audience members coughing, talking, and unwrapping candy during the quietest passage. Qubits, in their fragile state of coherence, absolutely hate noise. The slightest disturbance, a stray magnetic field, a tiny vibration, even a high-energy cosmic ray from a distant supernova streaking through the lab, can cause a qubit to lose its quantum information, a process called decoherence. But the biggest source of noise often comes from the qubits themselves. When you pack them closely together on a chip, their control signals can bleed over and interfere with their neighbors. This is called crosstalk. Imagine trying to have a private, whispered conversation with a friend in the middle of a crowded, echoing concert hall. Your message gets corrupted by all the other sounds around you. Engineers must go to almost superhuman lengths to combat this. They build intricate shielding structures around the qubits, like tiny individual soundproof rooms. They meticulously design the frequencies of the control signals, so each qubit is listening on its own private radio channel, filtering out the chatter from its neighbors. They even develop complex coupling switches that can physically connect and disconnect qubits on command, ensuring they only interact when they are supposed to. Preserving the coherence of thousands or millions of qubits in the face of this constant barrage of noise is one of the most significant and persistent challenges in the field. Finally, we arrive at the third hurdle, the agonizing pursuit of perfection known as the yield problem. In the world of classical computer chips, manufacturers have gotten incredibly good at producing billions of transistors with near-perfect reliability. But even they have a certain defect rate. A few dead pixels on a massive TV screen or a faulty memory cell in a gigabyte of RAM is often acceptable. In the quantum world, there is no room for error. Because of the interconnected nature of quantum calculations, particularly in error correction schemes, even a tiny fraction of faulty qubits can poison the entire system. A 1% error rate, which would be considered phenomenal in many manufacturing fields, can render a complex quantum algorithm completely useless. The qubits are hypersensitive. Any microscopic flaw in the silicon substrate, any tiny impurity in the superconducting material, any infinitesimal variation in the fabrication process can destroy a qubit's performance. And as you try to build larger and larger chips, the probability of one of these killer defects appearing somewhere on the chip approaches certainty. It's like trying to weave a tapestry the size of a football field out of the most delicate spider silk, where a single broken thread can cause the entire image to unravel. Manufacturing large, high-yield, and perfectly uniform quantum chips is, therefore, an exponentially difficult task. Faced with these seemingly insurmountable challenges of wiring, crosstalk, and yield, researchers are realizing that building one single, gigantic, monolithic quantum chip might not be the answer. Instead, they are turning to an approach that has served the classical computing world for decades: modularity. The idea is to build chiplets, smaller, more manageable modules that each contain a few thousand physical qubits. These chiplets can be manufactured with a much higher success rate. You can test them individually, identify the good ones, and then link them together to create a much larger, more powerful quantum computer. It's like building a supercomputer not from one massive, impossibly complex processor, but by networking together thousands of smaller, high-performance CPUs. Or think of it as building a sprawling city from well-designed, interconnected neighborhoods, rather than trying to construct a single, continent-sized arcology. This modular approach makes the problem of scaling feel more realistic, more achievable. But in solving one set of problems, it introduces a new and equally daunting challenge. How do you connect these modules? How do you get them to talk to each other with perfect quantum fidelity, without destroying the fragile information they hold? And this question leads us directly into the coldest place in the known universe. There's a fundamental reason why quantum chips are housed in those elaborate, chandelier-like structures I mentioned earlier. Those are not just casings, they are dilution refrigerators, some of the most powerful and sophisticated cooling machines ever built. Qubits based on superconductivity only work when they are chilled to temperatures near absolute zero, around 10 millikelvin, a temperature more than 100 times colder than the vast emptiness of deep space. At this temperature, the chaotic thermal vibrations of atoms are almost entirely silenced, creating the placid, quiet environment that qubits need to maintain their coherence. Now, imagine you have multiple chiplet modules. You could try to connect them across different cryogenic systems, but the physical links, the quantum internet cables between them, would act as thermal highways, allowing heat to leak in and noise to flood the system, instantly destroying the quantum states. The alternative is to house all the chiplets together in one single, colossal dilution refrigerator. But this presents its own monumental engineering crisis. Building a refrigeration system that can provide that much cooling power over such a large volume, while maintaining perfect thermal stability, is something we don't yet know how to do. It demands radical breakthroughs in cryogenic technology, system integration, and thermal management. The very act of connecting the solution creates a new, deep freeze bottleneck. The path forward is daunting, but it is far from hopeless. The momentum in the field is undeniable, and the challenges are being met with a wave of human ingenuity. The future of quantum computing depends on solving these interconnected problems of packaging and cooling. Researchers are experimenting with advanced 3D stacking techniques, allowing them to pack more components into a smaller space, reducing the wiring maze. They are developing new superconducting materials that are more resilient to noise and defects. And they are designing smarter integrated circuits that can operate at cryogenic temperatures, moving the control hardware closer to the qubits to reduce latency and noise. Compact, high-capacity refrigeration is a holy grail of the industry, and every year brings new progress in making these systems more powerful and efficient. This isn't just a story about physics, it's a story about the relentless, incremental, and brilliant work of engineers and materials scientists from around the world, pushing the boundaries of what is possible, 1 millikelvin and 1 qubit at a time. The milestones are beginning to fall. IBM has already built a processor, named Condor, with over 1,000 qubits on a single chip. While scaling this design and improving its quality remain significant barriers, it stands as a powerful proof of concept. It shows that the march of progress is real. But the ultimate prize, the machine that truly changes the world, is the fault-tolerant quantum computer with 1 million or more high-quality qubits. That is the system powerful enough to run Shor's algorithm and crack RSA 2048. And that system, for now, remains out of reach. Yet, the optimism in the industry is infectious. The consensus is building that by the 2030s, this vision may no longer be science fiction. We are living in the critical decade, the period where the foundational engineering problems will either be solved or they won't. So, what is the lesson in all of this for us? It's a powerful reminder that the digital world we inhabit, which feels so permanent and solid, is built on a foundation of mathematical assumptions that could be upended by a single technological breakthrough. The race to build a quantum computer is also a race to develop new, quantum-resistant encryption methods to defend against it. It is a race between the code breakers and the code makers, and the stakes could not be higher. The advice drawn from this story is not to fear technology, but to remain curious, adaptable, and informed. The world is changing at an exponential rate, and understanding the forces that shape our future is more important than ever. The story of the quantum chip teaches us that progress is not a smooth, straight line, but a series of immense challenges met with even greater creativity. And as we stand on this horizon of possibility, I want to leave you with a few questions to ponder. What does a world without digital secrets truly look like? If we succeed in building a machine that can break any code, can we ever be sure our new codes are safe? And what responsibility do we have as a society to prepare for a future that will be so fundamentally different from the present? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of the quantum revolution. I hope it sparked your curiosity and given you a new appreciation for the invisible world that powers our lives. I wish you all the very best of health and a future filled with wonder. If you found this exploration as fascinating as I did, please consider hitting that subscribe button and joining our community. We have so much more of the future to explore together.